Dr. Muhammad Yunus coined the postulation that credit is a human right. He should better know that minority protection is a bigger human right. On his watch, that right has been murdered. He may or may not be directly involved, but either he isn't in control or he is discreetly aiding the slide. Now, these words were written by my senior colleague Rakesh Khar, who's with me here in the studio. Joining us is also Savio Rodriguez, who's actually chronicled the fall of a Nobel laureate, as Mr. Khar wrote, the rise and fall again of the Nobel laureate. In fact, Savio has argued that the Nobel Committee must revisit the Peace Prize given to The Economist because he's been unable to stem the attacks on minorities. But over to you first, Mr. Khar. The rise and fall of this Nobel laureate, how did Muhammad Yunus get into this situation? We all thought he was, God's answer to Bangladesh's chaos. And here he's presiding over the worst number of attacks on minorities in Bangladesh's history since its creation in 1971.
Thank you, Sandeep, for citing the report that I wrote a few days ago. Someone wanted to add a little word to that. He says fall and fail.
Yes.
So he's already been described as a failed state.
Right.
Bangladesh is on the brink of Pakistanization,
yes,
which is no laudatory reference. And Pakistan and Bangladesh were being seen until about a few months ago as two separate signs of recovery and growth from the international
yes,
financial perspective, more so from the social economic indicators.
Yes.
Bangladesh at one stage was even doing better than India on the socio-economic indicators.
Yes, and far better than Pakistan.
Of course, far better than Pakistan. And someone like Muhammad Yunus, who represents the socio-economic paradigm,
yes,
because when I pointed out that he wrote about credit as a human right,
yes,
that was the postulation for which he got the Nobel.
Yes.
Of course, there's another part to it which I'll come to a little later. The fact of the matter is that someone like him presiding over this should have been able not only to stem the rot,
yes,
he has only aided the rot, unfortunately, and we have a situation today where, if we quote from economics,
yes,
there is something called inflationary roles and designations.
Right.
So, he has clearly got an inflationary, role and designation which he is not up to. And
right,
in his watch, under
yes,
his watch, we have seen the worst kind of, human rights abuse
yes,
in Bangladesh. Unfortunately, the global community is yet silent. I call this very, very interesting paradigm globally in the art of diplomacy, in the art of political craftsmanship,
right,
the art of strategic retreat and strategic outburst.
Absolutely.
So, this is a global way of looking at, commenting on situations. When it suits you, you'll be silent.
Yes.
For instance, all the big powers, the P5, they're maintained, barring Donald
yes,
Trump.
The five eyes. The five eyes are silent.
So eyes are shut.
Yeah, the five eyes are shut. Strategic silence, that's a good expression. I'm going to use that, Mr. Khar. Savio,
it becomes even more important when you
yes,
combine it with strategic outburst.
Outburst and strategic silence. The world is silent except for a few stray voices here and there. Savio, you've been writing about the Nobel laureate Dr. Yunus's fall from grace. But there's this very interesting letter that was sent 2 days back by some very prominent Muslim Indians to Muhammad Yunus on the harsh treatment of Bangladeshi Hindus and minorities. Now, the signatories include Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, Dr. Najib Jung, and Lieutenant General Zamiruddin Shah. And it says, I'll quote, if the present Bangladeshi government does not curb this deplorable development, which is the attacks on minorities, it would reflect tacit support for these attacks. Very harsh words there, Savio.
Muhammad Yunus, when he first came onto the scene in the recent weeks, I had very categorically stated that Muhammad Yunus is nothing but a CIA puppet.
Right.
Why do I call him a CIA puppet? Is because the entire orchestration of the coup for the ouster of Sheikh Hasina was done by the CIA, number one. Number two, you had their overt agency, which is the National Endowment for Democracy, that worked with political influencers, social influencers, and media in Bangladesh to initiate or to strike or to push forward the coup against Sheikh Hasina, forcing her to leave and take shelter in India.
Yes.
Now, when you look at the Nobel Peace Prize for which he was awarded, the Nobel Peace Prize stands for honor, stands for protection of human rights,
yes,
but most of all for the promotion of peace.
Yes.
Now, when he was given the Nobel Peace Prize, he was given it based on these principles that the Nobel stands for.
Right.
Now, if you look at what has happened ever since he's taken charge of Bangladesh, you have seen unprecedented atrocities on the Hindus and other minorities as well,
Yes.
but particularly the Hindus. Now, Dr. Muhammad Yunus is somebody who's driven or is tilted towards Islamic radicalism.
Yes.
And for us as India, that becomes a big problem because you've got Pakistan, which is an
Yes.
Islamic nation. And now you've got Bangladesh, which is moving towards an Islamic nation for being a secular nation.
Yes.
Now, Muhammad Yunus realizes that for him to stay in power, he has to become another Pakistan. And that
Right.
is what he's working towards. And another Pakistan to India is a problem primarily because terrorism, radicalism are offshoots of what Pakistan and Bangladesh will be in the future. And if you've got somebody like a Donald Lu, who was
Yes.
referred to as the white man
Yes.
by Sheikh Hasina herself in a meeting to the Awami League, 4 weeks before her ouster, you will realize that the CIA wants to make a Christian nation as well.
Yes.
Now, who are training the terrorists or in Manipur and who are working together are the Islamic radicals from Bangladesh and the militants or the terrorists in Manipur who are working together and getting training each other in terrorism.
Yes.
So India needs to be extremely careful. Muhammad Yunus must not be allowed to continue because he holds the honor of being a Nobel Peace Laureate. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee must reassess
Yes.
the Nobel laureate given to him primarily because he's dishonoring every principle
Yes.
that it stands for.
Absolutely.
I mean, many people say that the Nobel Peace Prize just turned to be a joke. Muhammad Yunus is proving it's a joke.
Muhammad Yunus is proving it's a joke indeed, and given the kind of chaos he's presiding over. But, Mr. Khar, the most worrying thing is that this was meant to be an interim government. But the Bangladesh's interim leader has refused to give a time frame for elections. He says that there are reforms that need to be carried out, and of course there's no time frame on these reforms.
So in that sense, Sandeep, he's not only failed the minorities, absolutely,
Yes.
he's also failed the state of Bangladesh.
Yes.
He's letting down the ordinary people of Bangladesh who have an aspiration for peace and development
Yes.
by not announcing any timeline for elections.
Right.
So he's got into a role, he thinks he owns the car, he's the driver, he'll drive it the way he wants to drive. There is someone who put him there, apart from the external angle, which my friend just now outlined so vividly, and we all know about that. The fact of the matter is that it is for the state of the Bangladesh and the larger population to take note and protest.
Yes.
The kind of lack of transparency on timelines for elections. Elections is the first and fair instrument of democracy.
Yes.
Bangladesh deserves democracy as much as India deserves, as US deserves.
Absolutely.
So I think in that sense, he has to be put on notice on that count. And I agree, and I articulated in my piece as well, that the Nobel Committee, because the entire citation which I put in the piece for giving the Nobel was based on empathy of a larger connect with minorities, Muslims, which is very valid and right. At that point of time, that was the need of the hour. At this point of time, the need of the hour is for the Nobel Committee to tell and nudge this gentleman that, at your command, all this is happening, we must take note. And not just the Nobel Committee. I mean, the Barack Obamas of the world, who are hailed and feted all over the world, more so in India, rightly or wrongly, for being the champions of, minority rights, for being champions of equity.
And they're silent.
They're silent. The whole world is
Strategic silence.
Strategic silence.
Strategic silence. But Savio, what's going on in Bangladesh right now, the way the father of Bangladesh is being treated, he's being targeted, his statues are being vandalized. And the latest, of course, is the fact that they want to remove his image from all currency notes. They've started the process. This is from someone who was part of the freedom struggle, though not while present in East Pakistan. Muhammad Yunus was abroad and he played a part in mobilizing public opinion for the creation of Bangladesh. What happened? How did he do this 180-degree turn and literally go against everything that the founding father of Bangladesh wanted?
Muhammad Yunus has one agenda, and that agenda is to move Bangladesh from a secular nation to an Islamic nation. I'm saying this over and over again ever since he's taken over. Because if you look at his functioning, if you look at the policies that he wants to bring or the lack of policies, you will realize that he wants to turn Bangladesh into an Islamic nation.
Right.
In order to do that, he has to become the face of the Islamic nation. And therefore, anyone related to the secular aspect of Bangladesh will have to be kept in the corner. And that's what he's doing. So the point is this: why does he believe that he can get Bangladesh to be an Islamic nation? Is because the United States government, the CIA, the NED have been cajoling him to believe that he will be the leader of Bangladesh and they will help him turn Bangladesh into an Islamic nation. That's precisely the problem. It's so simple. The thing with Muhammad Yunus is, Muhammad Yunus believes that everything that he stood for before gave him the platform necessary for an image and an honor and a respectability. Right. But within himself, Muhammad Yunus is nothing but a closeted Islamic radical, and there are atrocities happening to the Christians in Bangladesh as well. Absolutely. The point is this: what is it that he wants? And I'm saying it again. He wants Bangladesh to be an Islamic nation driven by Islamic radicals, and that's how he will be able to get his money, just like Pakistan got its money, being a troublemaker for India. That is his only intention, and that is the only way Bangladesh is going to move ahead as long as Yunus continues. Absolutely. Therefore, Yunus has to be removed in the interest of the people of Bangladesh more than anybody else. Because possibly the people of Bangladesh have a right to democracy, have a right to socio-economic
have a right
growth.
to elections. Most importantly, Savio, they have a right to elections, which there doesn't seem to be any sign of. But closing comments from you, Mr. Kar, the fact that one of the lesser known facts of the 1971 war, the reason that India went in was Mr. R.N. Kao of the RNAW felt that Bangladesh, or at that time East Pakistan, was being used as a springboard by Pakistan for fomenting insurgency in the northeast. There were a number of training camps in the Chittagong Hill tracts, which RNAW was keeping very close watch on. Mr. B. Raman has written that in his book. Do you see this Bangladesh under Muhammad Yunus's watch heading towards that kind of anarchy, where it once again becomes a base for radicalization, for Islamists to run riot, as was the case in the past?
I pray and hope not. I think collective will of the global community, global leadership, and led by India, because we are we are an interested party. It impacts us, largest border covering us, and in that sense, we have to proactively push for a diplomatic initiative to get Bangladesh to be back on the textbook. We know as of yesterday or today morning, the visa rules for Pakistanis to get into Bangladesh have been eased. So it's just the official part of it. Right. The unofficial part is who all are coming as part of that package. We really don't know. That would further your, But I'm a little surprised and also worried at the short-sightedness of the global powers in hoisting, if I can use the word for the gentleman in Bangladesh in this kind of a context, because two Islamic states may trouble India. Obviously we'll get the most trouble, but it's not a happy situation for even the global powers on that side of the world as well, because any commitment, however falsehood associated with it, of having enduring peace in the region, goes for a toss.
Absolutely, and that's what we are so worried about, the fact that the region could be in fresh turmoil. As Savio has also pointed out, the fact that there is an arc of instability across northeastern India, whether you look at it, Mr. Kar, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and of course our Indian state of Manipur, which is why everything that happens in Bangladesh impacts India's national security. But thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen, to talk about this grievous crisis in our backyard. The fact that a Nobel laureate is presiding over one of the worst phases of Bangladesh's history. Thank you very much, Savio Rodriguez, and my senior colleague, Mr. Rakesh Kar.